involved. So a light just went off.
Yeah, no, it should be good now.
Involved going right by Prescott Bush's house, and he was our senator in Washington, the daddy of
George W.
No, George H.
Right.
The father.
Right.
And Wendell Willkie, who was the candidate for president, and I got to know the Wilkies really quite well. Mrs. Willkie, and then the Willkie son, who by the time I was in college was sort of chasing after me a bit. I thought he was such a wimp. Went upstairs. Oh God.
What was that memory about?
Well, it was the moth that I was looking at.
All right. No, I thought you were talking about the boy chasing you upstairs.
No. Oh, here it is. It's coming. No. Is it? Something's coming.
I don't see that.
No, it went upstairs. Oh, God, don't spread the moths upstairs, please. Please. Anyway, and then the Pryors were unbelievably kind and hospitable to me. I never, ever repaid. Taya never came to my house. They would take me up to the Maine woods, camping with the Republican presidential candidate. He was, actually, Wendell Willkie was a delightful man. The Claire Booth Luce, who was married to the guy who started Time magazine, Life magazine, they were all frequently at the Pryors. Many years later, when she was the American ambassador to Italy, and Dad and I were living in Rome, I remember going to a party at the American embassy that she gave, and anyway. But so there were a lot of, and Sam Pryor, Tay's father, would take us up in planes, and there was a time taken that we went down to Washington, and I showed you that article about Stub Pearson.
Right. Yeah.
Well, the guy who wrote that was the one that I was sitting next to one time in the Senate dining room when the Pryors had taken Tay and me, when Sam Pryor had taken us down to Washington. And he was the one, when I said something about Stub, and tears started pouring down his cheeks. Anyway, so many people, and then I had a friend from the academy. I hadn't known Tay until I went to the academy, but we became very, 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 very close, tight friends. And in fact, I forgot about that. She had long hair and pigtails when we were in the freshman and sophomore year at the academy. That was not cool in those days. That was considered pathetic, but her father wouldn't let her cut her hair. And so she looked like a little
Heidi.
Kind of ridiculous in those days. And I figured out, and she was mortified by looking like this, I don't know what you would call it, actually. It was not an appropriate way for her to look in those days. And I figured out a way she could keep her long hair and just wear a different style rather than long pigtails. And it was something called a snood, and I got her a bunch of those, and she could curl her hair, her long hair, all up in it, and it just looked as if she had, shoulder-length hair. And that was kind of a big breakthrough for her, because until then she was considered sort of a wispy, shy, quiet person. And that really, it was kind of fun. It was my Pygmalion experience, transforming someone, but it really did take her out of her shell.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually, the hair started getting snipped shorter and shorter, and then she didn't have to wear a snoot anymore. But anyway, then another very good friend was at the academy was Athanasouros, whose father and uncle were big movie moguls. So Athanas' father, they owned, the Skouras brothers owned most of the movie theaters in the country, and their next door neighbor was Barney Balaban, who was the president of Paramount Pictures. And these were, Fox Brothers and Paramount, these were major.
And this is all in Greenwich?
No, they lived in Rye,
Mm-hmm.
but I would go down there for the weekend and spend the weekend, and they would have screening rooms in their houses, and they would show movies that hadn't been released yet, and people like Gregory Peck and other very well-known actors and actresses would often be visiting at one of or another of those houses. So we could, I had a whole lot of really interesting experiences, and I was very, very lucky. I think in retrospect, I had thought that maybe it was because people back in the old days, when at 180, when people were being so kind and hospitable to me and always inviting me over and inviting me to do nice things with them. I think one of the reasons might have been that people recognized what a terrible state Mother and Daddy were in and wanted to be kind to them. But I think it also was because I had very good manners. Mother had made sure of that. And my father also had beautiful manners. But so that I was very respectful and I wasn't a wimp because my friends and I had a lot of fun together. But with grown-up people, I had very good manners. And I think it really paid off. Because when I think of it, it's amazing that that people were so unbelievably kind and generous to me. Anyway, so there you have it. So then I went on to the academy, and I met, some of these other people I was talking to you about. And then I got to be, sort of bolder and saucier. And
did you always know you were going to go to Smith because your sister and mother had been there, or did you apply to anywhere else?
Well, I don't even think I applied to any place else. I might have, but they said you can go anywhere you want, but Smith was in the blood. My godmother, Aunt Leah, was furious with me for not going to Wellesley that she had gone to. Again, as this amazing woman from an Italian family who had emigrated to Puerto Rico. Her father they had been living in Sicily, in, I think Salerno, in the mountain, Mount Etna, or a big earthquake or something destroyed their holdings and their house and everything else, and so they took this whole Italian family to Puerto Rico, and I think her father was planning to have a grapefruit plantation, and that totally failed, and her mother was the one who started teaching the Puerto Rican women to embroider and to sew. And again, it's a case of another family saved by a woman who had been a grande signora in Italy, and then had this family, and she started this incredible business that for many, many years produced the finest, most elegant handkerchiefs. No Kleenexes in those days.
And how did she come to be your godmother?
Aunt Leah, okay, so they had a bunch of kids, but one of them was Aunt Leah, who in